Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you very much, Dr. Sharma, for this opportunity. The in vitro diagnostics industry is a niche industry within the healthcare sector, and it is a subset of the Indian medical devices industry. As you all know, in vitro diagnostics tests are conducted outside the body of the patient in blood banks, path labs, and hospitals. The IVD market reached a size of US $1.5 billion or 11,000 crores in the year 2020, after recording an unprecedented year-on-year growth of more than 45% during the year 2020. And you all know that this can be attributable to an extraordinary surge in demand for IVD tests required for the detection of COVID-19. And as a consequence, the a 5-year CAGR rate that stood consistent at 15% notched up to touch a figure of 19% in the year 2020. The pandemic has ushered in an enormous increase in awareness about health and wellness, and it has also underlined the need and utility of home use diagnostics tests. In fact, there's been a very high demand in the requirement of home use diagnostics tests during and post the pandemic. In addition, we will need to conduct several new tests for monitoring the impacts and complications of the long COVID syndrome. So these new tests, along with the sustainable and traditional growth driving factors like the increase in chronic diseases, automation, medical insurance, and medical tourism, all these factors are expected to drive the growth of the market by 20% per year for the next 5 years, and as a result of which the IVD market is expected to touch a figure of $5 billion by the year 2027. As we know, there are two major components of in vitro diagnostics: the reagents, which are the consumables, and instruments, which are the hardware. Reagents constitute a major 60% of the market share, and the remaining 40% of the pie is held by instruments. The Indian IVD industry has largely been import dependent. However, we've seen a very positive streak of improvement during the past 30 years. The import dependence was as high as 90% in the 1990s, but now we are about 60% import dependent. In the field of reagents, the industry has done a very reasonably good job, wherein we are 50% self-reliant. And this can be attributed to enablers like having the know-how, knowledge, and technology for making reagents, and having the availability of the major raw materials locally at reasonable prices. On the other hand, the situation for instruments hasn't changed much. We continue to be 80% import dependent for exactly the same reasons in the opposite direction, that we don't have the technology, the know-how, and the knowledge, and we don't have local availability of the spare parts, components, and other materials that are required for the local manufacturing of instruments. There are always two sides to any situation, as they say. On one side, COVID-19 pandemic presented to us a mammoth challenge in the form of morbidity and mortality. But on the other side, it also helped to bring through the three long-standing desirables of the Indian in vitro diagnostics ecosystem in a single stroke. There was a coming together of the industry and academia that led to a new wave of innovation, integration, and indigenization, under which several new tests were developed based on the RT-PCR, the RT-LAMP technologies from the molecular diagnostic segment, and then immunochromatography, detection of antigens and antibodies from the serology segment. And many of these projects were funded and supported by DBT and BIRAC. And the fast-tracked regulatory framework only bolstered the growth of this new wave. The COVID-19 pandemic has had an enormous and I believe the most significant impact on the market size. COVID-19 products just by themselves added 7,300 crores to the IVD market in the year 2020, taking it to a size of 11,000 crores, like I said, and recording a year-on-year growth of never seen before, 45%. The market segmentation of the in vitro diagnostics industry also saw a remarkable change. As you'd all agree that even till the year 2019, molecular diagnostics tests like RT-PCR were considered extremely exclusive, niche, high-end, and it was believed that only a handful of highly skilled people and a handful of highly endowed laboratories which had the infrastructure were in a position to conduct the molecular diagnostics tests. But the pandemic democratized this segment within a year. And you'd see that there was a dramatic increase in the share of this segment in the IVD industry from 4% in 2019 to 54% in 2020. On the other side, of course, the traditional and conventional segments of clinical chemistry, immunology, hematology, and microbiology witnessed a steep fall from almost 80% in 2019 to almost half, 44% in 2020. The number of local manufacturers also rose significantly during the pandemic. There were 60 local manufacturers in the country, in licensed manufacturers in 2019, and the number now is 180. So there's been a threefold increase in the number of local manufacturers in the IVD industry. And there are a couple of factors which could explain this threefold increase. Number one, a large number of startups who developed and manufactured diagnostics products for COVID detection entered the industry. And they really contributed a great deal to having a great installed manufacturing capacity for the RT-PCR test. And the second one was the entry of some of the players from the adjacent segments of pharma, in vivo diagnostics, and life sciences into the IVD space. And of course, not to miss, even the Tatas entered the in-vitro diagnostics industry last year. And this is testimony to the fact that we are on the right track. And also it gives us a great deal of confidence that probably we are also poised to fly high in the sky like Air India soon. The first RT-PCR test that got the ICMR approval and license to manufacture by the CDSCO was in April 2020. And the industry has come a long way since then. And today we have a collective installed manufacturing capacity to produce 100 lakhs, 1 crore RT-PCR tests per day. And you'd see on the table that there are equal number of installed capacities for other tests also, which are supportive tests for the RT-PCR, the RNA extraction kits, the VTMs, VLTMs, and a good manufacturing capacity also for the serology tests for the detection of rapid antigens, antibodies based on immunochromatography, as well as the ELISAs. COVID's not going to stay here forever, at least we hope it doesn't. What are we going to do with this large installed manufacturing capacities? I think we've got to now democratize the next segment of IVD tests into molecular diagnostics. And a low-hanging fruit for us, I believe, is the screening tests that are used in the blood banks, the HIV, HBsAg, HCV. There are 2,500 blood banks in the country, and only 100 of them use molecular diagnostics techniques to screen for HIV, HBsAg, HCV. And each one of these tests that are being used are important. Therefore, it is the responsibility of the industry and the new entrepreneurs now to make molecular diagnostics tests for blood banking, TB, and other diseases that are specific to India and our subcontinent, which no one else is going to develop for us from the West. You'd be happy to know that there were a total of 1,500 new diagnostics tests for COVID-19 that were developed during the period 2020-2021. And out of these 150, a good 10% were developed in India. And 45% of these tests were based on molecular diagnostics, the RT-PCR, the RT-LAM, and the CRISPR technologies, and 55% were based on serology. And these products were developed by the industry, the Government of India research bodies like the ICMR, CSIR, and institutes of national importance like IITs in collaboration with BIRAC in many instances. So the pandemic has put the Indian IVD industry at a point of inflection. And from here, we can catapult to the next orbit, quite like what happened to the IT industry post Y2K, or what happened to the pharma industry after 1985, when the generic formulations became acceptable globally and slowly we came to be known as the pharmacy of the world. So we find ourselves somewhere there. And in order to cross the threshold to the next orbit, we'd have to focus on some enablers like technology and innovation, standards and quality, and some positive policy changes to benefit the industry, and of course to build brand India and create a positive perception of domestically manufactured products in the minds of the customers and users, both locally and globally. When we talk of technology, there's a big gap between the level of technology available in India and that available in the developed geographies of US, Europe, or Japan, which collectively hold 80% of the market share. We Indians form 18% of the share of the global population, but our share in the global IVD market is less than 2%. The Indian IVD industry has been growing at a CAGR of 15% over the past 10 years against the 5% global growth rate, which is so much lower. Yet we have not been able to cross the already inadequate 2% mark. So there has to be a missing link to describe this or to justify this dichotomy. One of the missing links, of course, is technology. And the other missing link is the skill set that is required to develop and promote medical technology and medical devices. And that's probably because of the fact that there's no customized academic curriculum or degree to convert a student and make him industry ready by forming a link between the academics and the industry. There's no hand-holding between the lecture theater of an academic institute and the R&D bench of a CRO or a shop floor of a manufacturing company. And additionally, what is taught in the academic curriculums could be far remote from what is required to meet the demand of a job. And that is why students, when they pass out from their academic institutions or colleges, they have to unlearn a lot of things that they learned at their institutes. And then they have to learn many, many more new things to meet the demands of the jobs that they have just entered. I think the AMTZ's Executive PG program in medical technology exactly establishes the need for such a program, because they are going to handhold the students and make them industry ready and also update them with the latest technologies and the updated information, not just in a theoretical manner, but an array of experiences which would be hands-on at AMTZ and also through internship stints at the 20-odd associates that they have in the medical devices manufacturer side at the AMTZ. In fact, I feel in a nutshell, the AMTZ is preparing the students for growth and success through this program. And why do I say that? It's because when I looked at the curriculum, I saw that AMTZ was doing it so right that they were starting grounds up by making the foundation, the technical foundation for these students very strong by teaching them and giving them exposure to fundamental subjects like the human anatomy, the human physiology, and medical instrumentation in general, which are very essential for the in-depth understanding of medical technology. In addition, they are offering options to students to specialize in the areas of their interest or the areas of their need, the need that they see as a demand in their current jobs. And I talk about in vitro diagnostics, there's a module for product design and product development. So if a student was to get exposure in developing point of care diagnostics tests, home use tests, companion diagnostics, and working on novel biomarkers, I think there'd be a very enriching career in front of such a student who'd pass out from an AMTZ PG program institute. By looking at anatomy and physiology as subjects in the curriculum, I was immediately reminded of my undergrad days at the All India Institute of Medical Sciences. The director of the institute back then had a vision to produce scientists and technical experts of global quality. So he started a course, a graduation course of 3 years in human biology. And there was a common entrance exam for MBBS and this course at that point in time. And there were common classes for the first 2 years to teach anatomy, physiology, biochemistry, pathology, pharmacology, and microbiology, along with other subjects. This was followed by a post-graduation program for 2 years in one of the 5 subjects that were being offered by the institute at that time, but one still had to clear an all India entrance exam to get into post-graduation. After this, the students who were interested in pursuing their careers in research, academics, or government went on to do their PhDs and postdocs. And those who wanted to enter the industry, they branched in that direction. The point that I'm trying to convey through this slide is that the success of a program is dependent on the quality of the curriculum and the quality of the students in equal measure. Therefore, I'd request AMTZ to set some qualifying criteria for the enrollment of the students who would enter this program so that the high quality that is envisaged at this moment is maintained in the times to come. And there are several unique advantages that the AMTZ Executive PG program in medical technology offers over the conventional and traditional degrees that I just alluded to. One can continue to educate oneself and learn by being on the job, since it's an executive program. And most importantly, it promises to deliver a capsule of consolidated and relevant knowledge to the students, so that at the end of it, they become vocationally very strong and are able to deliver high quality output at their place of work. This is also a very efficient program. It is fast tracked and it allows for and affords theory knowledge as well as experience on the practical side and internships within a short span of just 12 months. And this program affords exceptional networking and placement opportunities, I believe, for the students while they'll be doing their internships at the various manufacturing companies. That get to meet a lot of people. And if they're good, they might even get a placement opportunity at such a company. And there are a number of people working in different departments, I think, of the industry who would stand to benefit enormously by this program. And I'd urge the CEOs, the promoters, and the leaders of the IVD industry to nominate appropriate employees or appropriate members of their teams to enroll in this program. I see a clear benefit for those who are working on product development, because there is a module that is dedicated to product design and development, specifically for the in vitro diagnostics. And if the promoters and leaders think that they want to place an employee or a new entrant for doing a stint at manufacturing, quality, or regulatory, I think such a person must definitely be exposed to and enrolled in such a program, because in majority of the cases, the employee would have had the opportunity to learn basic sciences like chemistry, biology, physics, and others, but they may not have had the opportunity for learning the fundamentals of the medical subjects like the human anatomy and physiology and biochemistry that are such an integral and important part of being a successful professional in the medical technology domain. And I also feel, employees in marketing or branding, though it doesn't seem so obvious, but these employees or students could also benefit a great deal by enrolling into this program, as they'll have several insights and they develop a very strong acumen for their domain, and that will help them position their products more appropriately based on scientific reasoning, and then slowly they could convert themselves and grow themselves as technical marketeers. And on behalf of the Association of Diagnostics Manufacturers of India and the IVD industry, I'd like to congratulate Dr. Jitendra Sharma, the team at AMTZ and Skill-Lync for having successfully established a link between the academics and the industry. And I take this opportunity to share an acronym that I made for this called LINC, which stands for Learn and Become Industry Ready, Network, and Kickstart Your Journey to Growth and Success. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, ma'am, for your kind words.